impromptu.
Yeah.
And actually, that's something that we're live. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Substack Desko live working lunch. To the folks that are coming in, this
It
is
took me
the
a minute to realize Al Desco. I had to kind of go, what? And then go, oh, of
ah
course, Al Desco. I got it now.
L.
I was a little bit
Yeah.
slow on the uptake. It's good.
Oh,
I like
slow
it.
on the uptake, or is it not a common term?
No, because al fresco, right? Al fresco is what you mean, right? But we're at our
Ah,
desks.
yeah. It was
Yeah?
from my friends who are in like corporate world. They'd sometimes talk about being so busy that they'd have to have their lunch al
Al
desco,
Desco.
so they're
Oh,
eating
that's
and working at
tragic.
the same
That's
time.
just heartbreaking, isn't it? That
Yeah.
just makes me feel sad.
It shouldn't happen. I do think that there should be divided times, but also I'm basically this is me. Like I work for Substack, but I play with Substack, and my excuse for doing this live show, it's like, I'm kind of doing it when I'm having lunch, so it's in my
In your
lunch
lunch
break,
hour. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and I like to do it.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
welcome, Eleanor
Thank
Anstruther.
you, Arthur.
It is so
Good to see
lovely
you.
to have you as my co-host today for this
Pleasure.
relatively loose. It's really about the world of Substack, particularly Substack UK, because it's like it is a
Mm,
big thing. It's really rapidly growing, but you know, Substack came from America, and a lot of the biggest stuff is there. So I like to
yeah.
talk about the world of Substack UK and the people that are doing cool things on it. Hence the
Yeah.
time thing. I don't think anyone's up in the
Yes. I
States
mean,
right now.
yeah. And actually, one of the things I found since I've been writing and being on Substack is the amount of friends American friends that I've made where all of my meetings and
Mm,
now tend to be at the end of the day, which is hell for me because I begin my working day at 3 in the morning. And so by the end of the day, I'm just like, I'm really not fit for human consumption after about 3 o'clock in the
yeah,
afternoon. But I've taken to having proper mid naps. I've just had one actually
yeah.
because I knew I've now got a back to back load of things after here. Otherwise, I
The
just
power
can't.
nap.
I have become Mrs. Power Nap. I can be
Yeah,
asleep and out and 40 minutes back in the room again like that.
that's very interesting.
Because yeah.
Pre kids, I prided myself on being able to sleep standing up like a horse, but it's a little different now. Tell me about 3 a.m. What what do you get up to at 3 a.m.?
Yeah, I right. So that's the creative bit of my day. And I guess it began because of kids. And I think it was during lockdown when we were all back in the house again. Because normally I worked in a studio up in the garden, but when lockdown happened, I
Mhm.
had to be in the house and everyone was around during the day. And the only time that was absolutely dead quiet and like I call them the golden hours was,
Mm,
3, 4 in the morning up until about 7 in the morning. So I kind of got in that habit and I just haven't been able to break it, which is amazing for, the work I do, this morning. So I'll work for 2 hours. I'm writing a new novel.
mhm,
So I'm pulling something out of nothing and I'll do 2 hours every morning and that's it. I'm very consistent, but I
mhm,
just do 2 hours. 3 till 5 and then I do another little bit till whatever. But
mhm,
yeah, it does mean that when I've got evening things, which I've got like next week, I work for the Good Law Project as well. So next week we've got events
mm.
coming up. And I've got to be on form for like a whole evening thing going right through. And already I'm slightly panicking, like shit, how
Yeah,
so I've got myself a hotel room so I can sleep for an hour
that's
before
a really good
the because
idea.
it's in London and I don't live in London.
Yeah,
So I'm constantly thinking, right, how am I going to manage to write a not? But I think all novelists find that once you've got off the blocks, you're
mm,
always simultaneously writing something new, getting something ready for submission, and publicizing what's out. So you're
mm.
constantly my writing world is divided between those three things. So the pure creative bit, I have to really ring fence it to 3 till 5 in the morning. It's the only thing that works.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've
Yeah.
done something similar for similar reasons. Like, yeah, I have
Have
two
you?
kids about 3 years old, and even before
Okay.
them though, I discovered that if I got up, so now I basically get up at 4:30, and it gives me 2 hours kind of to myself.
Yeah.
And that initially was for just the creative stuff, and I really want to get back to that. Actually, it's inspiring to hear you. At the moment, I do find that
Mm.
especially the end of it, the last half hour is like unloading the dishwasher and making coffee and that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
but I want to get back to that. Yeah, I tend to wake up and I do like 10 to 12 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes of like an exercise, like a body moving thing. and then I
Nice.
have like a 10-minute kind of meditative, basically, yeah, meditative kind of stuff, and then meant to get creative. But I'm just adjusting to the fact that I now work full time for Substack, and it's so inspiring to hear you talk about that is the creative time, and then yeah, emails,
And
all
then the
that other stuff
emails come in, because
later.
do you make sure, I make sure I do not look at my phone or anything until I've finished the creative stuff. Like nothing can get through the bubble. Is that something are
Yeah,
you disciplined around that?
that's my ideal. I've mucked it up a little bit because some of my exercises follow along on the phone,
Ah, see,
and it's the
once you turn
same
it
with like
on.
I use an app,
Yeah.
but I need
Yeah.
to. Yeah, you've inspired me to like go back because when I was really roaring and doing that stuff and feeling really good, it was exactly like you say, not getting up and yeah, turning on the phone.
Yeah.
Actually, so
Yeah.
what's the what's Substack kind of brain for you? Because you're publishing
Yeah.
very regularly on Substack with interviews and so on. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, how do you
Yeah, it's a
think of
good
that?
question because it fits somewhere in the intersection between creativity and that other bit. I mean, I don't really think of it as all those words, selling, branding, but I get
Mm,
hives the moment I say those words. But
yeah,
there's
yeah.
it's somewhere in the intersection between pure creativity and then kind of getting myself out there. Let's put it like that. And
Hmm.
actually, there's a perfect intersection happening right now because Toby Litt, who's my guest today on 8Q,
Yeah, I
he
read that.
re-inspired me to get back into doing these daily, very short daily diary posts, which is how
Ooh.
I started my memoir way back when I started on
Hmm.
Substack. That was how I began. So I've just started doing it again, but this time I'm dropping them behind a paywall because I kind of want to write quite personal stuff, and I've sort of figured now
Hmm.
I've got a big enough audience now that I don't really think about any of that stuff anymore. So
Yeah.
so they drop my paywall. But what they do, so I'll do my 2 hours of writing this new novel, and then I'll sit down and write that diary entry straight onto. I write it straight in, and it goes on, and I press post publish immediately.
Great.
So there's that
Yeah.
perfect intersection happens right there, and I find it brings me from that pure creative space where I've been somewhere up here somewhere, and it brings
Yeah.
me into that slightly, yeah, where Substack exists, where it's creative but it's also grounded in what we'd call the real world. But it's
Mm.
such an interesting question because it is such a creative space. It's a very community strong space. And yet we're also bearing our souls. I mean, all the friends I've made on Substack, and I've made a
Mm.
lot in the last 2.5 years, I've really made like proper good friends who I now see
Mm.
outside of Substack. And one of the things that sped that up is that we are very intimate with what we're writing
Mm.
there. It's an absolute choice whether to read it or not. So you get this kind of fast track into people's lives, like knowing, oh, these people are my people.
Mm.
So I think that's one of the really clever, and I'm sure the guys and girls when they set it up didn't realize quite that aspect of Substack was that it does meet in this very pure place of creative community, intimacy, yet public,
Yeah.
and it's out there. It's nowhere I've ever come across before in terms of my writing life.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I'm fascinated by the term, parasocial relationships, and that idea that, I feel that I know, say, King Charles or something like that. In which
Yeah.
case I do, but I don't.
No.
But when you meet these people who are part of your
Pod.
tribe,
Yeah.
do you find that they actually know you a bit, and you actually know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I mean,
mm,
I've picked out the people. I have like a standard, maybe 10 or 15 people who have all become friends, who are the ones I absolutely always read when they post. And
mm,
when I eventually got to meet pretty much all of them, yeah, they absolutely are the people who I met on the page, which is
that's so
very, very
interesting.
uncommon, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when you meet a writer, like if you pick up Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale, and you read it, and then you meet Margaret Atwood, she hasn't bared her,
Mm,
but
yeah.
yet, even though she knows she's on Substack, but you know what I mean? But when
Yeah.
you meet, yeah, I mean, that's been my experience anyway, that they
Yeah.
have been who I've met on the page, which is fascinating where that bit, what did you call it?
Really
That
cool.
what was the phrase you used?
I heard a phrase parasocial relationships, which is where,
Parasocial
yeah, you
relationships.
think you know someone
You
better than
think
you
you
actually
know.
do.
Yeah.
And I found it with that. So I wonder if there's a difference between like broadcasting, which is, oh, I see them on the news and I, see them every night at 6 or whatever. And sometimes I think of Substack as narrowcasting, even though people have quite large audiences. There's something narrower about that, and there's something narrower about the relationship than what you would do if you were, speaking to infinite audience or something. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
not
think it's
sure.
something about the intent because what we're
Mm,
each doing on Substack, I'm just there for me. It's pleasing me. I'm doing it
mm,
for me. There's nothing else about it. It's serving a purpose for me. And so what I'm putting out is primarily it's practice, and it's just, that's where it's coming from. It's
yeah.
not that I'm setting out to, I don't know, not setting out to publish a book, which has got a different
Mm,
kind of intent to it. So I think there's something about that which allows for a certain personal intimacy to it, something that a much more personal content is produced in some
mm,
way, because nobody has to nobody has to open my publication. I mean, it's literally, it couldn't be more choice if it tried. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's like, and they can walk past
Yeah.
me and I'll never know, and that's fine too. So
Mm.
there's something about the fact that it's so choice driven
Yeah,
that
they've really
allows.
asked to hear from you.
They really have. They've really said, I'm going to
Mm.
stop at Eleanor's door and I'm going to come into her house and I'm going to sit at the table and see what she's talking about today. And then
Yeah.
she's going to, but I don't need them for me to get what I want out of Substack, which is just the joy
Mm.
of pressing publish and all that. That's one of the
Yeah.
joys. I don't need them to stop by my house. So
Mm.
there's no, do you know what I mean? I will do it whether, if every single one of my subscribers left now, I would still carry on. It wouldn't
You'd
change.
still be.
I wouldn't miss a beat.
Yeah,
And the other reason I'm
that's interesting. Mm.
Yeah, and the other reason I'm there is for the community. So that's the difference. So I
Yeah.
also go out of my house and I love discovering who's in my community. But in terms of that, the
Mm.
former one, yeah, it wouldn't change anything in what I produce, or my rhythms or anything. It's funny.
Uh, when we were in the virtual backstage, we were talking about something
Yeah.
that I'm noticing about Substack, which is that, oh my goodness, the lights have gone off in this room. I have to move about.
There
There we
you go.
go.
They're back on again.
Um,
There you go.
I, I'm
You're in
not
a
animated
beanbag. That's
enough
so
to keep the
70s.
lights on. Yeah, cross-legged on a beanbag, good
I love
seating
it.
posture. Um, that Substack is not like, we've had to talk to people that are good on, say, Twitter or X or something. It's like, look, Substack's not just better Twitter. Substack
Mm,
is not just YouTube, but on Substack. Substack is, and I love the fact that, it's really important to us that we've got writers on Substack, but Substack is not a novel, the place to write your novel, but on Substack, is it? And
no,
so, how do you, I think you're getting, how do you think about that? Because you're doing, like, we find the best of your novel writing is by buying a paper book, right? Or maybe buying
yes,
an ebook. I don't know if you have an
yeah,
opinion, but
no,
yeah.
either way.
So and Substack's not just this marketing arm or
No,
whatever writers cringe about. So what is it in your writing career? In your,
it is. It's a place to practice, I think, first and foremost. So, and that's practice off the cuff, low risk writing. So I
Mhm.
would say like my diary entries are off the cuff, low risk writing.
Yeah.
It's a place to try out work. I mean, I've serialized two novels now on Substack, and both, well,
Mm.
one of them has gone to print. It came out last week, and the other one
Oh, interesting.
is its own place. But I've now taken it down on Substack, and
Yeah.
it's in pre-production.
Cool.
So it's a place to try out work that I just wanted to. Well, certainly with the first one, A Judgment of Others, which is the novel that came
Yeah.
out last week, we weren't able to sell it mainstream, and I knew it was a
Mhm.
good book, so I just thought, I'll just try it out on an audience for
Mm.
free and see how it goes. So that was a really interesting process.
So you
Um,
had the whole. Did you have the whole book and then you serialized it, or did you find the
yeah.
book while you were serializing it?
No, no, I've talked to many writers about this, and now there are
Mm,
writers out there, Simon Jones and Ben Wakeman being two in point, who write who serialize to the page. In other words, they
mhm.
write as they go along, which is the most terrifying. And I think
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just no way, man, would I do that. No, no,
Not for
mine was
you.
absolutely not. No, completely finished. When I edited it for serialization, it meant that I had to get the chapters set the same. It was very good exercise actually. It meant I
Mm,
got all the chapters of the same length. The beaks were all the same. It got the structure, edited it a little bit closer. It was a bit tighter, all that kind of stuff. So I've
mhm.
used Substack for that. I may not do that again. I've got one more novel sitting in a drawer, which I think is a little too long. So I probably won't do it
Yeah.
for that.
What
So
about
yeah,
your
trying out
postcards
what
novel?
yeah, well, that was the original. I mean, the postcards, because I arrived on Substack really on my knees in terms of mainstream publishing. I'd had a really
Mhm,
tough time. My first novel, my debut came out, did really well, and then the next one wouldn't sell, which is the one that came out
mm.
last week. And I had a few kind of disasters, and I was just feeling like I can't cope with this anymore. And then Fiona Melrose, a really great friend of mine, who I wish we could bring on to Substack.
Oh.
She's great. Her novel came out last week as well. It's called Even Beyond Death. It's brilliant.
Mhm.
In fact, I'm going to interview her next week, hopefully, to try and bring her on.
Cool.
She said we were talking about Substack and this kind of thing, and so I said, "Look, I'm going to try it." So when I came to Substack as an exercise, and this, I came with zero anybody eyes on me at all,
Mhm.
and I committed to writing and publishing every day a piece of writing. Didn't know what it was going to be that would take no more than 1 minute to read,
Oh,
and I had to do
interesting.
it every day at 4 in the morning. So it had to land in
Mhm,
everyone's inboxes by 6 a.m. in the UK. I couldn't
mhm,
plan. I couldn't think about tomorrow. It had to be like really off the cuff. That's what I
mhm.
wanted. I just wanted that instant download. And what emerged was my memoir, which had been knocking about my system for about 20 years. I had never been able to figure out how to
Wow.
write this memoir. And I wrote it in these postcards. After about 3 weeks of doing it,
Mhm,
the memoir started coming out. And so it came out in 65 postcards.
mhm,
And then when I'd written those 65 postcards, I knew it wasn't finished. So then I wrote the recovery diaries according to exactly the
mhm,
same rules. So that was get up, write, and it must take no more than a minute to read. That was the really important bit because it
mhm.
meant that people would read it. People would message me and say, I've stopped doing Wordle. I now read your memoir with my coffee in the
Wow.
morning. And I was like, that is the biggest compliment I'm ever going to receive in my life. So yeah, that's
Well,
how I arrived here. I arrived like on my knees, upset, feeling, wondering if I could even write,
mhm,
searching for community. And what I found was incredibly supportive community. My memoir got written and I kind of found my groove. I think that's why I started Eight Questions, because I was thinking to
mhm.
myself, how long did it take to find my groove? And it took about
Yeah,
a year probably. And
interesting.
yeah, yeah. And then
And it
8Q
sounds like you've
just sort of
played with a
arrived.
few different things as well, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I have actually. Like I did a sort of teaching course with Mary Table for a while. That was really fun. We take questions and we do video recordings. I've sort of, but I think that's the other great thing about Substack, and we talked about this in the green room. It is a place to play.
Mm.
Just play. I say this to people. Just have a night. Just try it out. If it doesn't work, honestly, nobody cares, do
Yeah.
they? Like, nobody cares. The amount, like, I changed the name of my Substack about 6 months ago. I
Mhm.
didn't announce it. I just changed the name. It's like I
Yeah.
always find it amusing. It's a bit like on Twitter when people say, "I'm going to," they announce, "I'm going to take a Twitter break," or I just think,
Yeah.
literally, do you really think anybody cares? Nobody cares at all. No one's
Just
even.
do it.
Just do it. Like everyone's just thinking about themselves, you know. Like so, that's how I use the space as a really friendly space to try things
Mhm.
out and have fun and experiment and meet people and that kind of stuff. It's great.
What other, yeah, what are some Substacks that you've come across that you find notable in this moment?
Well, I mean, I thought about this because you did, I knew you were going to ask this. So, I have to say that I've written down, there's Substacks which I
Mm.
always read when they come in, and they are my
Yeah,
friends. So I am going to big up my friends. So I always
that's
read
right.
Tommy Swerdlow. I always read
Okay.
Deirdre Lewis. I always read Adam Nathan, Chloe Hope, Kimberly Warner, Holly Starley, and David Roberts. Those are the ones when they come
Mhm.
in. I always read, and Nick Hornby. Oh,
Ah, fans
brilliant.
notes. Yeah.
So wonderful. When Nick first arrived here, I DM'd him like so quickly and said, please come on
Mhm.
8Q. And he was like, I've
Yeah,
literally been here 3 days. I said, okay,
yeah.
this is wait a little bit. But he was just, God, he's the nicest man in the world, and I love his stuff,
Yeah.
so that's brilliant. Tom Cox always makes me laugh.
Tom Cox.
His post this week was very, very funny. I've
Hmm.
got Camilla Pang is coming on. She's new to me. She's a scientist
Hmm.
and works in the neurodivergent space. One of my children is
Ah.
autistic, and
Hmm.
so she'll be on 8Q soon. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know her
I was going to
Substack.
ask that because I'm not familiar with.
Mm,
I'm going to put these names down, but I'm not familiar with some of them. Are they?
mm.
They're not all literature. What kind of
Yeah,
genres
no,
do they
well,
span?
Tommy and Deirdre, and Holly, probably Tommy and Deirdre are writing quite a similar space. Deirdre
Hmm.
writes snaps, which she's just a wonderful writer, and she will write. They're just snaps of her day or things she's thinking about, that kind of stuff. They're just beautifully written. And Tommy will do exactly the same thing. I just love his how he sees the world, and he's a brilliant. He's a
Yeah.
screenwriter. He wrote
Oh,
Cool
nice.
Runnings. I can never understand why he.
That's my favorite film. I kid you
Well,
not. When anybody asks what is your favorite film, I say Cool Runnings, and it
yeah,
brings me to tears every time. And
I
this
know.
person's on Substack.
Yeah. And let me
Oh
say,
my
not
god!
that Tommy could cares about numbers.
Feel the passion, feel the pride.
Right. It
It's
blows my mind that he doesn't have like a gazillion people reading him. He doesn't. And everybody listening now, sweet Jesus, find Tommy Swerdlow because he's brilliant and he makes me laugh and he makes me cry and he's a wonderful writer and he wrote Cool Runnings.
serendipity. And
I
he
know because
wrote Cool
when
Runnings.
he was one of the very early people I got to know here. And when I realized he wrote Cool Runnings, I was like, "Holy sweet Jesus!" I was so excited. Yeah,
Oh
he's
my
brilliant.
gosh. Oh,
Yeah, so
that's
find it.
so
Okay, I'm so pleased. Yeah, it's one
wonderfully
of those films.
serendipitous there.
Yeah, yeah, good. Okay, we'll seek
Oh,
him out.
that's great.
Chloe, you must know Chloe Hope. She writes Death and Birds.
I don't, but
Oh,
I do now. Thank you.
okay.
There we
Well,
go.
Adam calls Chloe the patron saint of
This is
Substack.
why we do this. It's
This
like
is why we do this.
there's tens of thousands of active writers on Substack. Lots of them are really freaking good. And yeah, I exist in my little bubble, and this is exactly why I've done this show so that I can hopefully help the audience understand people. But selfishly, I want to know who's cool
Yeah.
and how it all works out and who to read. Oh,
Yeah, and it's
fantastic.
amazing actually because Kimberly Warner, who does a wonderful interview series, she writes Unfixed, and her memoir will be
Hmm.
coming out at the end of this year, published by Empress Editions. It's wonderful. She
Mm.
serialized it here on Substack. She
Yeah.
does these wonderful interviews, so she's great to check out. Love Kim.
Cool.
Adam Nathan is, I think he's one of the best literary fiction writers on here. I don't
Hmm.
think he gets nearly enough attention. He's writing a short. I think it's a short. Maybe it's a novel. Adam, you tell me. It's called
Hmm.
Knuckleball Artist. He's
Ooh,
brilliant, and he should be much better known. So
Lit
yeah, I always
Fest.
read Adam.
We need to have a Lit Fest for sure.
We
Uh,
really need to have a lit fest. I mean, me and
yeah.
Simon Jones and Ben Wakeman have talked about this quite a lot, but and
Mm,
I'd love to talk to Farah Store about this because we
yeah.
need a lit fest. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
I could bring along a whole load of writers. And on that score, actually, the Metro. I mean, I need to say a hello and a big up the Metropolitan Review. I'm on their
Mm.
editorial board. They're a great new literary review that exists on Substack and also in an actual real literary magazine in New York.
Oh
And
my goodness.
they are brilliant.
This is all going to go. And
Yeah.
by the way, everybody, I'm going to publish the replay of this along with all these links and recommendations on Monday at lunchtime. So it's a
Yeah, so you'll
beginning of the
get
week,
them all.
end of week
Well,
thing.
I'm
So you
just
will
seeing
catch all of
Sandalora
these.
Sykes is just here, and
Yes.
she was great. Sunflux. I
Oh,
was honored to be one of my short stories was in the first story in their second edition recently. Yeah, it was great. So
fabulous.
yeah, they're doing great stuff.
Well, I try to keep this to a tight 30 minutes, and I try not to rush. It's been a really
I'm
lovely,
a
diverse
talker.
conversation. But we have two very important bits that make this a
Yes,
Substack El Desco. One
yes.
is, Eleanor, I mean, you
Mm,
get up at 3 in the morning.
mm.
I guess I want to know, when do you have lunch? if you had
Yes.
lunch. And what are you having for lunch today? What's in your
Okay, yeah,
lunchbox?
my meals are all over the place because I will generally
Mm,
eat. This morning for breakfast, I ate venison and steamed greens, and that was at about 5 o'clock this morning. So that doesn't
yeah.
make any sense. I rushed in from riding my horse about half an hour ago and had,
Hmm.
totally inappropriately for a British winter, avocado on rice cake, which was not satisfying at all. But what I
Aha.
really wanted, and I wish I could have, would be a lovely, in my imaginary al desco, I'm having a lovely
Mm.
big bowl of vegetable soup with dumplings and cheese on toast. That
Oh,
is what I would like.
that sounds absolutely delectable. The
Imaginary
avocado
world
mushed onto rice cake is
was
very much a
frankly not good
staple of.
enough.
Yeah, it's very much a staple of my diet. That little piece of cardboard because the kids really like it with kind of honey and butter. I am terrible because I'm at work on Friday afternoons. I try to go home, so I am at the mercy of whatever is left over. I'll be there after the kids have had lunch,
I
but
know
usually
that
there
place.
and there's no leftovers from last night. I got my lamb man. I've got a lamb dealer because I live in
Have
rural
you?
Norfolk, and we had
Okay.
a nice saddle of lamb last night. But my wife and I and the
Oh,
kids actually munched the whole lot, so there's no leftovers. I shall have to go and see, and yeah.
okay.
So
Because those
I should
years of
be
small
better
children,
prepared.
they're the leftover years, aren't they? Of those years of small children. All I ate was fish fingers, I feel like for about I
Yeah.
don't know how long. Mine are now my kids are now about to be 18, so I've thank goodness got through that
So
bit.
my discipline is that I try not to eat the kids' food, and at the same time, we try not to do like multiple different, adult meal
Yeah.
and kids
No,
meal.
no. Yeah.
But we also are dealing with the reality that, cheese pasta with like cheese stirred through it is about what we can get people to eat at the moment. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're really,
I've been there.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very interested by this thing because both my wife and I love to cook, and it's just,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
think we probably
know.
set ourselves an artificial challenge there with like having the whole family eating the same meal when one of the family is like
Yeah, but I
not yet
think
two.
I know, but if there is a right and wrong to these things, I think you're doing the right thing.
Mm.
I think you make a
W
rod for your back if you start doing different meals.
Yeah, not making a rod for our back
Mm,
is really important. I think so.
mm,
I think we'll loosen up there a little bit. And then the last question, Rob,
mm.
that makes this a Substack Aldesco, and you've almost answered it already, but
Yes.
who, alive
Mm,
or dead, who is not currently on Substack, would you like
mm.
to see on Substack?
Well, I've got a few. The first
Mm.
one is dead, but it's Bill Hicks. I
Bill
miss Bill
Hicks on
Hicks.
Substack. Oh, yes,
And
we
if we
need
could
more
bring
comedians on
Bill
Substack.
back, oh, I would be so happy about that. Of the
Okay.
alive, yes, Fiona Melrose, my friend, my writer friend, it'd be
Yeah.
great to have her here. I would love to have Marina Hyde, who is a British journalist. She's
Hmm.
brilliant. And Beth Rigby is also a British political journalist. I would love her to be Beth. If you've got anyone here who knows Beth,
Interesting.
bring her on. She's
By
brilliant.
popular demand.
And also, I've got to say, Nick Cave. I know he runs the Red Hand
Interesting.
Files, which is kind of
Yeah.
rightly, he doesn't need Substack, but I would so love it if Nick would transfer the Red Hand Files to Substack.
Interesting.
That
All
would be
right.
really super great.
I'm going to be going to America in a couple of months' time, so I will dig up Bill Hicks wherever he
Please
is in
dig
North
up Bill
America,
Hicks.
and
Yes.
I will note those other people. And sometimes
Mm,
that's the
that's the
way. If we can get
nudge.
in touch, it's like, hey,
Hey,
people
yeah,
think we should be on
that would be
Substack,
super great. I
so
will
it's
introduce them.
really
I'll do a
lovely to hear
live
that.
video feed to introduce them to Substack.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you could
Yeah, yeah.
slingshot them onto Substack via a live video, which would launch
Exactly, a
them to
slingshot.
an
That's
acclaimed
exactly it.
public, and
That's
they'd
exactly
see it all.
it.
That sounds really exciting.
Great.
Everybody who's come on and hung on with us today at Substack Al Desco, thank you. It's lovely to have you here. Lots of names I've seen before and some new names.
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
doing this. I'm doing this. I'm making this commitment, and it's been at least a month now. Substack Friday, 12:30. What else are you doing? With an interesting co-host. This week it has been Eleanor Anstruther. The replay coming out at 12:30. So subscribe. I think you can just, if you're not subscribed to Substackery or to Eleanor's, just thumb it. You subscribe for free right now, and then you'll hear more from us, and you can get into a deeper relationship, a beyond parasocial relationship is what seems to be happening. Um, as we discovered today during the show. But thank you so much, and thank you, Eleanor.
Fantastic.
I'll be in touch, and let's make that lit
Great.
festival happen, eh?
Let's make it happen, Arthur. Amazing. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.